Patrick Mahomes is the most dangerous quarterback alive. 4 Super Bowls, 3 MVPs, not even 30 years old. He moves like the game is running at half speed for everyone except him. But here's the thing nobody asks. What if Patrick Mahomes was never allowed to play quarterback? Not because he wasn't good enough, not because he got injured, but because of the color of his skin. Because that almost happened to someone else, someone just as gifted, someone who had to fight a war that Mahomes will never have to fight. Because that guy already fought it for him. And here's what's really uncomfortable. Patrick Mahomes has never publicly said that man's name. So who is he? And what does it actually cost a civilization when it buries its own genius? Warren Moon, born 1956, Los Angeles. By every measurable standard, the best quarterback coming out of college in 1978. He won the Rose Bowl. He was the MVP. He was the obvious first-round pick. Every single NFL team passed on him. Not one offer, not one tryout at quarterback. They told him he could convert, play running back, wide receiver, anything but the position he'd mastered. He said no. So he went to Canada, played 6 years in the CFL, won 5 consecutive Grey Cup championships, became the greatest player in Canadian football history. Then, and only then, did the NFL come calling. He played 23 seasons total. He threw for over 49,000 yards. He was inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame in 2006. And here's the number that matters most. He did all of that while being told, for years, that someone who looked like him simply could not lead an NFL team. That belief had a name. It wasn't whispered. It was policy. There was a thing called stacking in professional football. It sounds like a logistical term. It wasn't. Stacking was the practice of pushing black athletes away from thinking positions, quarterback, center, middle linebacker, and toward positions considered purely physical, wide receiver, running back, cornerback. The assumption underneath it was grotesque, that black players were athletically superior, but cognitively unsuited to lead, that they couldn't read defenses, couldn't command huddles, couldn't be trusted with the game on their shoulders. This wasn't fringe thinking. This was the operating assumption of NFL front offices for decades. And the wild part? It worked. Not because it was true, but because it became a self-fulfilling prophecy. When you don't draft black quarterbacks, you don't develop black quarterbacks. When you don't develop them, you don't see them succeed. When you don't see them succeed, you keep not drafting them. Warren Moon broke that loop, but it cost him everything to do it. Now here's where it gets complicated. A lot of people tell this story like Warren Moon was a singular hero who stormed the gates alone and changed everything through sheer willpower. That's a cleaner story. It's also not entirely true. Moon was exceptional, but the NFL didn't just evolve on its own after him. Doug Williams had to win a Super Bowl as a starter in 1988 and be named MVP before the league pretended to take notice. Donovan McNabb had to endure a decade of, is he really a franchise guy? Doubt. Michael Vick had to be electric, not just good, electric, before anyone conceded the position could belong to someone who looked like him. The system didn't collapse, it retreated. It found new language. Instead of black quarterbacks can't lead, it became, he's more of an athlete than a pocket passer. Instead of explicit exclusion, it became vague concerns about football IQ and processing speed, phrases with no bias on their surface and mountains of it underneath. The door didn't swing open, it cracked, barely, and a generation of quarterbacks spent their careers bleeding through it. Stop for a second, because I want you to actually feel the weight of this. Patrick Mahomes' father played Major League Baseball. He grew up around professional athletes. He had resources, visibility, support. He was scouted, developed, and celebrated. Warren Moon grew up without his father. He was raised by his mother and 6 siblings. He worked construction in the off-season to survive. He played in a foreign country for 6 years, not because it was an adventure, but because the most powerful sports league in the world decided his mind wasn't good enough. Same position, same American soil, 30 years apart, 2 completely different realities. And the question that should be haunting you right now is, how many Warren Moons didn't make it? How many went home, took the running back offer, disappeared into careers that were fine but weren't them? How many never got a Canada to run to? But now, let's push the other direction. Because this story isn't just about race. Patrick Mahomes almost wasn't a quarterback either. His father wanted him to focus on baseball. MLB scouts were watching him in high school. Texas Tech's offensive coordinator had to convince him to commit fully to football. And when he did, he played in an air raid offense that critics said would never translate to the NFL. Too much improvisation, too much chaos, not enough of the classical pro-style mechanics that scouts had been evaluating for 50 years. In other words, the system almost rejected Mahomes too, for different reasons, using different language, but the underlying machinery was the same. A rigid idea of what a quarterback is supposed to look like, supposed to be. And Mahomes broke that mold just like Moon did, just with far less friction. Which raises a question that has no clean answer. Is the barrier gone, or did it just get quieter? Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray, Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen. The current NFL is a showcase of quarterbacks who don't fit any old template. Mobile, electric, instinct-driven players who make the game look like something invented yesterday. And there's a version of this story where we say, see, we got there. Progress is real. The league evolved. But Lamar Jackson had to negotiate his own contract because no agent believed they could get him a fair deal. He was repeatedly compared to running backs during his draft process, despite winning the Heisman Trophy as a quarterback. His first MVP season was treated by some analysts as a fluke. His second MVP season, unanimous, was treated as a correction. His third MVP season was treated as dominance. 3 MVPs before people stopped arguing about whether he belonged. Warren Moon spent 6 years in Canada. Lamar Jackson spent 6 years proving something that should have needed 0 proof. The timeline compressed. The resistance didn't disappear. Here's something I think we don't say out loud enough. Talent is not the rarest thing in the world. Talent is everywhere. What's rare, genuinely rare, is a system that finds it, that doesn't filter it out based on fear or assumption or comfort, that doesn't make a kid prove himself 20 extra times because the people evaluating him can't separate what they see from what they expected to see. Warren Moon had that talent. The system failed him first, then it used him, then it honored him with a plaque, and we called that a happy ending. But the question I keep coming back to, the one I don't have an answer to, is how much better could we have been? How many championships? How many iconic moments? How many players who changed how we understand the game were lost to a belief system that had nothing to do with football and everything to do with fear? This isn't just a sports question. This is a civilization question. So, would Patrick Mahomes exist without Warren Moon? Technically, yes. Mahomes would have been born. He would have played football somewhere. But would he have been allowed to be Patrick Mahomes, the quarterback, the franchise, the face, without the ground that Moon and Williams and McNabb and Vick slowly, painfully cleared? I genuinely don't know. What I do know is this: the story we tell ourselves about progress is almost always cleaner than the story that actually happened. We say the barrier broke. We don't say someone had to break themselves against it first. Warren Moon's name should be in every conversation about Patrick Mahomes, about Lamar Jackson, about what the NFL is right now. And if it isn't, maybe that's not just an oversight. Maybe that's the system working exactly as designed. How many Warren Moons are out there right now? In football, in medicine, in science, in every field, doing extraordinary things in places they were pushed to because the real door was locked. And who's holding the key? If this made you think, share it. Someone in your life needs to hear Warren Moon's name today. Subscribe if you want more stories that don't let you off the hook easy. I'll see you in the next one.